The time for summer sewing has passed, so all the sewing ideas that I didn't get to this summer have flown right out of my head and are being replaced with ideas for fall. So that's what I'm chatting about today. One of my worst craft-related habits that I can count on at least once or so every year, often in the fall or spring, is that I start to assess the gaps in my wardrobe and I start making a list of all the things that I need to fill those gaps. Patterns, fabric types, matching knitwear, you name it. And I get all excited making these plans, and then I usually do very little about it. I can't find suitable fabrics, or I get frustrated and sidetracked by too many ideas, or I just proceed as if the act of making the list itself is somehow going to magically materialize those clothes in my closet. It's not. And then about another year goes by and I'm trying to do it again when I look for something in my closet that I think that I should have, but I still don't because clothes don't make themselves. So this time I'm not making a big complicated list, but I am going to actually start trying to address the biggest gaps I've identified in my closet. And for real this time, and you can help keep me honest since I'm committing these plans to video here with you. So way at the top of my list of identified wardrobe gaps in my closet is separates. I desperately need separates. In my head, I have a variety of colors of cigarette pants and pedal pushers and capris, but we're talking about fall here. And I wear them all the time with flats and a cute patterned shirt, a cardigan or a bolero if needed, or a sweater. And as the weather cools down, this is a large part of my style. In my head only. In reality, I absolutely do not have most of that. I can't pull this look together nearly as often as I think I can, and I need to fix that. So here are the main things I've identified that I need to work on with sewing for this. Pants. Straight up pants. I have a lot of variations of vintage-inspired jeans, but I don't really have that many non-denim pants, or at least ones that go with very many things. Leopard print cigarette pants are great, but obviously not something that goes with very many outfits. So I have a lot of plans here. I need more pants in several colors and stretch woven bottom weights so that I can mix and match. I say stretch wovens because I do find them a little bit more comfortable for relatively fitted pants, which is what I tend to prefer, and I will usually gravitate towards them more, especially around the house, which is important since I work from home. I totally get that stretch wovens have their own unique issues since they tend to get baggy quicker, and with varying degrees of stretch in fabrics, even the same pattern may not fit the same between two different fabrics, and you're left taking in or letting out the legs or whatever. But honestly, I still turn to those fabrics more often because I just find them more comfy. Now the thing is, I always run into a roadblock being able to find suitable stretch woven bottom weight fabrics. And then I can't make any decisions because I find one or two and then I stash them because I can't find more and I don't want to sew them up, which means that they're just sitting in my stash, not being pants, and that doesn't do me any good. So I sort of falter before I get very far in this. So I've been thinking about fabrics a lot, of course, and I love stretch corduroy, but it's really hard to find in the US, at least online. I really like it though because it's a little bit more forgiving for things like lines from your shirt being tucked in or your underwear or whatever, and it just has a lovely look. But I actually only have one pair of handmade cigarette pants in corduroy that I've made. That will be changing now though, because I went on a deep dive to find stretch corduroy fabric and I found lots of colors on Minerva.com, which is in the UK but ships to the US. And I ordered enough to get free shipping, which admittedly was a bit of a gamble, but hopefully it works out. I have a big old stack of the pre-washed colors right here. Oh God, corduroy is heavy. Oh, and one fell on the floor, okay. A few of the colors ended up being a little inaccurate, but one turned out for the better since it actually ended up matching a pair of shoes of mine exactly. That's this green right here. And one of them, this light blue here, turned out to be pretty similar to another stretch corduroy that I had in my fabric stash, but I'll just make one into pedal pushers and one into pants. Why not? And one turned out to be like, I don't know, like, whatever this color is. We'll see what I can do with this. But the other colors were really good. The fabric is a bit more drapey than I would normally expect out of a cotton corduroy, but I think it should still hopefully work out well for pants. I also found at least a couple of colors of stretch cotton twill on Etsy, one of which I used for my recent pedal pushers that I did a video on. I'll link that in the description. And I found a couple of other websites like Stone Mountain and Daughter and Hearts Fabric that had a couple of stretch twills that I may try there too. And I recently sewed up a pair of pedal pushers in some stretch twill that I had in my stash. I added this cute kind of like machine couching on the hem of the legs, and it came out really cute. I'm definitely gonna have to try that again sometime. Now there is one glaring problem with sewing pants. They're just not that interesting to sew, and they don't make for a very good YouTubiness. So I imagine most of this part will probably happen off camera. But it's also kind of boring sewing a lot of pants, so I'm cooking up an idea for maybe trying to batch sew several pair together. So I'll keep thinking about that idea and we'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll do a video on that. So to go with the pants, I also need tops, which is perhaps even more of a quandary for me than pants. It's not that I don't have tops, but I don't have the right ones, or I have the right ones, but I don't have pants to wear them with, or I no longer love the ones that I've made in the past, so I don't wear them very often, or maybe even gotten rid of them at this point. And I have some solid color tops too, but I don't really tend to wear all solid color outfits, so I wear those mostly with skirts. So that leaves me needing to sew more pattern tops once I've sewed more pants to wear with them. You can see how this is all a bit of a vicious cycle. Anyway, I rounded up all of my vintage sewing patterns for tops, and I ordered a couple more, and I'm keeping them out in my sewing room so I actually remember to sew some frickin' shirts this fall. Here's a big stack of them. This is hardly all of them, but so these are some of the ones that I'm thinking about right now. I just got this one in the mail. It is so cute, and I think I'm probably gonna sew up version 3 with the kind of like 3/4 length sleeve cut on and the gathered waistline. I think that looks really, really cute. I did a gathered waistline top before. It's actually in, I think, my 5 favorite spring items video. I'll link that in the description, and I love how that looks, and I think that this would be really, really cute with some pants. Just need to sew the pants and the shirt. But again, we are at the subject of fabric. I have a lot of vintage fabric, but most are in yardages or in prints that I think that are more suitable for dresses or skirts. And most of the prints I see in online fabric shops just don't really do it for me. So I did order a yard each of 2 different spoonflower prints in their cotton lawn, which is obviously a pretty lightweight fabric, but they came out really nice. I really like these prints a lot. I thought they'd be nice for fall or spring too. So I thought those 2 fabrics would be nice to kind of like transition from summer into fall. And in fact, this particular one matches a couple of the corduroys that I got from Minerva, both this blue and particularly this green. So I see a couple little outfits there in my future. So I'm hopeful about these spoonflower fabrics, and you can often get a sale at Spoonflower, and their wide widths mean that you don't need as much yardage, so it can actually work out to be pretty reasonable. So I am keeping my hopes up that these might work out, turn out to be some nice little kind of fall blouses, and then maybe there's another base of theirs that would be good for kind of like a little bit more like a winter appropriate top. So we'll see how that goes. But in general, still lots to work out with tops, because as it gets colder, then I need to layer on top with a cardigan or a bolero, and depending on the cut of the top and depending on the cut of the knitwear, they don't always jive with each other, and you can see how this just spirals and spirals. But I feel like I'm off to a good start, and the main thing I want to do is start making a dent in sewing up separates. Period. End of story. Stop putting it off. I'm committing it to paper. This is not paper. This is a video. I'm committing it to video. Keep me honest, folks. Hopefully I'll make this happen for myself. And my last big wardrobe question as we go into fall is, what lightweight-ish coats do I have that work with pants? Almost all of my fall and spring coats are plaid. What can I say? I love plaid. They're mostly Pendleton 49er vintage jackets, which work great with casual outfits with jeans, which I wear a lot. I do have a couple of fall and spring jackets that aren't plaid, but one is cropped, and I find it makes outfits a bit dressy looking, so if I'm not feeling that, then it doesn't work for me. Plus, it's not quite as warm, so it's good for like early fall, but not so much later fall. And the other one kind of almost has the opposite pattern in terms of weight, because it's a little bit heavier, so it's not as suitable for early fall. Plus, it's made from the same vintage sewing pattern, and so it has a teeny bit of that dressy look still with the little stand-up wing collar, and I do love it, and I wear both of those jackets a lot, but they're not always quite right between that and the plaid ones. So I think that there's 2 main styles of lightweight coats that I'd like to make. One would be very lightweight, basically like a Pendleton 49er jacket, and I'd probably make it unlined too, but in a solid color and not a plaid one like my vintage ones. I've actually already made a heavier plaid one from a vintage pattern, McCall 7400 from 1948, so I could probably use that pattern again, although I actually have a McCall's pattern 3242, which is pretty much dead on a Pendleton 49er. It even includes the yoke with the slight gathering on the back, and so I might actually use this one. But I'm probably going to shelve this idea for spring, since you could basically just take this entire video and replace the word fall with spring, and it all still applies. But hey, maybe next spring I'll have made a dent in all of this and we can revisit it. But in the meantime, the main coat that I definitely want to sew this fall is inspired by a coat that I saw on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's just a simple knee-length cotton coat, which looked great with paddle pushers and flats, which is obviously very close to what I'm trying to pull together for all of the style that I've been talking about. Given this whole separate situation that I'm trying to work on this fall, I think this coat would be brilliant for me for fall and spring, and I think I have just the right pattern too. It's Simplicity 3630 from the early 1960s, which is actually the pattern that I used for my deep winter coat. It's basically that same boxy shape that I'm looking for, though I might alter the pattern slightly to be a little bit more boxy. I'm going to have to revisit my muslin, which I found! Huzzah! This is why I keep a bin of all my muslins. So I'll try this on and see what I think and see if I need to revisit anything fit-wise to achieve this for a fall weight coat instead. I'm thinking of using a cotton velour fabric for it, which I think is just slightly more interesting than just like a cotton twill or something. It's a little bit risky, I realize, because it could look kind of dressy and read a little bit too velvety, but I'm thinking that if I do patch pockets, which the pattern has, and I did on my winter coat version of this, and if I did top stitching around the patch pockets and also around the collar, I think it will help make it read a little bit less dressy. Plus, somehow I feel like the velour with the nap and the texture, it'll just be a little bit more forgiving and kind of age in nicely with life that happens in a coat, like sitting on a train, digging in the pockets for my gloves, carrying a bag on my elbow, things like that. At least this checks out in my head. So to everybody who's asked me if I will sew a coat on my YouTube channel, the answer is finally yes. So we'll talk more about that soon. In the meantime, though, I'm going to continue to ruminate on these ideas and kind of bake them a little bit longer, and you can watch one of these two videos in the meantime, and we'll talk again soon and see where this is all going. Okay, honestly though, where the hell is my watch? Why did I take it off? Where are you? Oh, are you under baby poop brown? No, where are you?